My sister-in-law and I normally get along okay. We aren't super close, but we're civil. My sister-in-law has a super nice older car that she doesn't let anyone drive, not even her wife. That's fine and dandy with me. I'm not big on driving, and I wouldn't want to risk screwing up someone's prized possession. Onto the issue. I was over at sister-in-law's house with my sister-in-law and her 19-year-old daughter, Leslie, who I'm very close to. My husband dropped me off before leaving on a business trip 6 hours drive away. My sister-in-law was going to give me a ride home or I'd Uber. We were outside in the garden, and Leslie ended up falling and severely injuring her leg. We would later find out she had severe fractures to 2 separate bones in her leg. Leslie was screaming in pain and my sister-in-law thought she was faking and kept telling her to shut the hell up. I kept trying to tell my sister-in-law that we needed to take her daughter to the hospital, but sister-in-law would hear none of it and kept telling her daughter to deal with it. At that point, I told sister-in-law I was calling an ambulance as she refused to drive her daughter to the hospital. Sister-in-law freaked out at this and said that it was too expensive and since her daughter was on her insurance, she'd be on the hook for it. She said that if I called an ambulance she'd kick her daughter off her insurance. Ordinarily at this point I'd call my husband for help, but he was already 3+ hours away. So I asked if I could use her car and take her daughter about 10 minutes away to the hospital. Sister-in-law rolled her eyes at me and chuckled and sarcastically said, "I couldn't care less of what you guys do." I know that wasn't exactly a yes and that she was being sarcastic, but it was to the point that Leslie was vomiting due to the pain, so I got her to sister-in-law's car and drove her to the hospital. When sister-in-law realized I was serious, she started blowing up my phone, saying she was going to call the cops and report her car as stolen. I told her to do it and that I'd rather my niece be safe and me in jail than anything else. She didn't end up calling the cops in the end because she called my mother-in-law to complain and mother-in-law blew up on her about her behavior towards Leslie and told her if she called the cops mother-in-law would consider cutting her off financially. I'm now banned from sister-in-law's house and she refuses to speak to me or my husband. She also kicked my niece off her medical insurance. My husband and I are now paying for a private policy for niece and has told Leslie that if she sees us she'll be kicked out. If that does happen, we've told Leslie she's welcome to stay in our guest room as long as she needs. So, am I the idiot for essentially committing grand theft auto of a car my sister-in-law has repeatedly told everyone never to drive because it's her baby? Not the idiot. You should suggest to your niece that she come and live with you now. If your sister-in-law is not going to provide for her needs, healthcare is a need, she'd be better off with you. If your niece cannot see you without losing her right to live with her mother, she would be better off not living with her mother. This was a medical emergency, you needed to take the car. Leg fractures can be extremely dangerous. She needed to get to the hospital as soon as possible. And the ambulance wasn't an option. In pain that severe, and Uber wasn't a reasonable option either. The value of a car will never compare to the value of your niece's health. Your sister-in-law desperately needs to reassess her priorities. I hope your niece is doing alright now and recovering well. Your niece needed medical care, and your sister-in-law certainly wasn't going to do anything about it. Had you not taken her, she could have been maimed for life from her leg not healing correctly and possibly needing more extensive procedures in the future to correct it, thus costing more in medical bills and causing her constant pain. The fact your sister-in-law was so dismissive and refuses to speak to you after the fact knowing how badly her daughter was injured makes her the idiot. Just because your kids are adults doesn't mean you stop being a mom and start treating your kids like crap. That sounds like the type of situation you'd call CPS for. What a horrible mother. Good on you for getting your niece the care she needed, with realistically the only way you could without calling an ambulance. Also, really, what the hell is her saying she'd take her child off the insurance because of you calling an ambulance? If anything, it'll just be a large bill to her child and back to her by proxy as her adult. We currently live with my husband's mom and she does a lot for us. I truly appreciate that because we got ourselves into a financial rut. Mother-in-law is a hardcore perfectionist who always has to be the best at everything to the point it is completely toxic. She was taught growing up to never eat if someone else isn't, and as a teen that spiraled into never be the only woman eating. It was ingrained in her by her very overweight mother to never let anyone think she was a pig. Not surprisingly, mother-in-law and her sister both have serious issues with food. This is insane obviously, but she is also an emergency room doctor who doesn't work normal hours, so this makes it even worse. We are someplace that is probably in the third or fourth wave, so she has been working crazy hours. The other day she took us after work to do some errands. We don't have a car at the moment, but she said it was fine because she needed groceries. The grocery store sold food you could eat there, and she asked if we wanted any. I had just eaten so I said no, but she should eat since she just got off work. She insisted she wasn't hungry and was just thinking about us. By the end of the shopping she seemed to be shaking and asked again if we wanted anything. My husband said he'd eat something just because he felt bad for her. I wasn't hungry and said no. She ended up leaving without eating. Then we went home and she fainted. I don't know if it was just not from eating. She has been working like 20-hour shifts pretty routinely. Now her boyfriend is pissed at me and says I should have eaten something so she would. I said she is a grown woman and I don't feel responsible, but he said I know who she is, called me an ungrateful idiot, and said it's my fault she fainted. Not the idiot. Her boyfriend, your husband, her friends, etc. Anyone could get mad at you, and yet it wouldn't reflect poorly on you. If she fainted it wasn't because you chose not to eat, but because of what her sick mother engraved in both of her daughters' minds. It'd be nice if everyone took this as a chance to persist her on getting therapy and not to enable her even more. By the way, you can also get sick by eating too much, so their logic is that she shouldn't get sick, but you should so that she doesn't. What a brain teaser. Everyone's the idiot here. You have no obligation, but knowing that she has an eating disorder, it would have been a kindness to eat. Surely you could have gotten something small and nibbled on it. It was a grocery store. You could have purchased a small portion of grapes and just eaten a couple. You said you live with her and she does a lot for you. Why not support her in return? Added to that, we all need to be supportive of healthcare workers in this horribly stressful time. Actually, the more I consider, the more I'm leaning towards you are the idiot. But I don't like the actions of others in this story. This was not a huge deal, and you chose stubbornness instead of kindness. Everyone's the idiot here. All three of you. Your mother-in-law is the idiot for not being more responsible. Your boyfriend is the idiot for calling you what he did, and you are the idiot for not doing a small thing for an emergency room doctor who's been working crazy hours in the third or fourth wave of the pandemic and is letting you live with her because of your financial rut. Toxic or not, you could have supported her, and you didn't. She is a grown woman and I don't feel responsible is also a pretty toxic attitude to take. If she'd taken the same attitude to you, you'd still be in that rut. So, I absolutely hate our neighbors. We don't get along whatsoever, and I'm literally wanting and planning on moving specifically because I can't stand living next to them anymore. They blast music almost every single day from first thing in the morning until about 3 am. When I say blast, I mean I can turn the TV up decently loud and still can't hear it over their music. They're constantly throwing huge parties as well, with loud drunk people yelling and hollering all night long and occasionally breaking out into fights, as well as a lot of loud explicit language. I've asked them on more than one occasion to please turn down the music, as they were either making it impossible for me to work or do my schoolwork, working from home, or keeping the kids from being able to nap or sleep. Now if it was just that, I wouldn't care too much about my husband being so friendly with them. The thing is, despite being rather nice about, when I asked them nicely if they would turn down the music or try not to be so loud and rowdy, I would get cussed out, hurled insults at. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say them here, but a lot of them were very degrading, said they were going to talk to my husband to tell him he needs to get his idiot in line, and other stuff. My husband, for whatever reason, seems to really like them. He says they're cool, chill people who just like having fun, and thinks I shouldn't have a problem with their music and partying, because I can just listen to my own loud music on the headphones. And since he knows I don't really listen to music much and have sensory processing disorders where I can't handle loud sounds, it's not their fault I'm a square. Occasionally he lets them come into the house and I hide in the room when it happens, and I'll hear them say stuff looks like your wife knows her place when you're around and laugh. Well, my husband just is like, oh yeah, she really doesn't like being around y'all. That happened the other day and finally made me snap. I told him I'm tired of him acting all buddy-buddy with idiots who constantly insult and degrade me. When I ask for any form of respect, respecting the people around you by not being so loud nobody can work or sleep. I hate having them in our house, and I hate that he doesn't stand up for me when they insult me to his face. I told him I don't want him being friendly with them anymore and that we're moving anyways, so it shouldn't matter. He says I'm being controlling and unreasonable, and I can't expect him not to have friends just because we don't get along. But I don't get along with his other friends either and don't mind him having them or ask him not to hang out with them. I just don't want him being friends with people like our neighbors. He was really mad though, and now I'm wondering, am I the idiot? Is it too controlling for me to tell him not to be friends with them? You are obviously not the idiot. If my SO would not take my side on such issues, especially if it impacted me so much, I'd be thinking about our compatibility. Your neighbors calling you names is just bad, but your husband not defending you is just heartbreaking. I am not sure what actions you can take against your neighbors, but it seems you first need to get your husband to see your point of view, which by the way is a completely fair request. He seems to be very fickle-minded and seems to revel either in his youth or wants to be the party-goer person. I can't say for sure. I definitely have a serious conversation with him. As most others have said, sounds like you have a hubby problem. A good hubby would at least be tempted to fight them if they talk to her about his wife that way. They sound sexist, and while I would say he can be friends with who he wants, he shouldn't want to be friends with people like that. Like his other friends, where you don't like them but aren't asking him to not be friends with them. I would say since they don't respect you when you ask, just get the cops involved next time. Regardless of being sensitive to loud noises, it should be obvious it is more than just you and they are over the top loud and headphones. Who wants to have to sit in their own house with headphones on to be able to hear their stuff because of the neighbors? Your husband is a piece of work. You have asked, nicely, if they can please turn it down. And they insult you, and he lets them. I would be throwing some serious hands if somebody ever talked to my partner that way and your husband is agreeing with them. On top of that, you have a sensory processing disorder. That's not easy to deal with, and then he calls you a square because you can't handle loud noises. I'm sorry, but you need to either sit him down and have a serious talk or leave him and let him figure out whatever problems he's got on his own. Shaking my head. I, 24, am pregnant with my first child and I'm due the week before Thanksgiving. My parents live outside of the country and, due to COVID restrictions, my husband, 27, and I were not sure if they would be able to make it for the birth, so when my in-laws asked if they could come to stay with us close to our due date, we said yes. My husband's family is huge, and this is something I didn't even consider when we agreed to this, which already has been causing me to have a ton of anxiety. He has 6 siblings, a brother-in-law and his parents coming. His family is really hoping to stay for Thanksgiving with us after the baby is born. However, since his sister and brother-in-law were unable to take time off for the due date or Thanksgiving Day, we all agreed to celebrate it on the 30th. Well, today we got a call from his family saying that his sister no longer wants to celebrate it on the 30th, but is giving us the option to either have Thanksgiving on the 20th or the 21st. My due date is on the 19th. We told them we have no idea when the baby is actually coming, so we could not promise that this would work. They then asked when our next OB appointment is and told us to tell our doctor to have the baby induced on the 12th since that works better for the family. I'm pissed. They didn't even ask us how we feel about it. We are already having to plan to have the house full of people with a newborn while COVID is still a thing, and now they're trying to convince me, the lady who had been puking her guts out for the last 7 months, to make a rushed decision about my first pregnancy to appease other people's schedule. I'm already terrified of the unknown, and this is causing me so much stress. Am I the idiot for not wanting to be induced and for being upset that they asked for this in the first place? Not the idiot. Hard truth here. You need to lie. You need to get out of the situation. I get that your in-laws own the house you're renting and you feel obligated. Tell them that your doctor said your blood pressure is too high from stress and you need to calm down and take it easy. That means unfortunately that you guys have to cancel the family's arrival. They can come once you have the baby, everyone is safe and you settle into a family routine. I don't usually advocate lying, but I have no problem with this one because it is what's best for you and your unborn baby. Absolutely. I'm concerned for a baby being around that many people when it is first born as well, especially with COVID. Lie. I really hope you don't think you are the idiot in this situation. Their request is crazy and shouldn't be considered. I would tell everyone not to come. This is your first pregnancy, and it was already inconsiderate of his family to think it was a good idea to have 6 people visiting you all at once. It sounds like there may be some serious boundary issues with his family. I think you would be better off with it being just you and him welcoming your baby into the world. This sounds like an awful scenario from beginning to end. It is so rude and invasive that they would even think to tell you to induce your baby to fit their schedule. It sounds like your husband's family is kind of pushy, but you and your baby are the most important people in this scenario right now, and you should only do exactly what you need to safely deliver your baby and take care of them when they come. Express your concerns to your husband now and enlist his help to keep his family at bay. He really needs to run interference with his family and put you and the baby first as his top priorities. I, 34, am a single dad of 2 amazing kids. My 18-year-old son and my 14-year-old daughter. 14 years ago my fiancée and the mother of my children died suddenly, and it destroyed me. She was everything. We were supposed to grow old together, raise our babies together, share a life. She was my best friend for 15 years and my love for 6. After she died my family expected me to date again, find love again, marry someone and find another mother for my kids. But I have never had any interest in meeting someone else. I focus on being a good dad and enjoying my life the best that I can. But I never wanted to move on, and I don't feel like that's something that will ever happen for me. About 2 years after my fiancée died though my sister started getting pushier. She told me I needed to find someone who could make me happy. That I deserved better than staying single for the rest of my life. I told her it's my choice and if that's what feels right to me, then it's what I'll do. For the most part she lets it go once I say no, but she brings it up often enough that it has affected our closeness. 2 years ago we stopped talking for months after she brought my kids into this plot to set me up and was disappointed they didn't want to take part in it. When I found out I was furious and I thought that was the last of it when we reconciled because she saw I was willing to not speak to her and her apology was the most genuine it had ever been. Then last week she told me she wanted to hang out. We were supposed to go to dinner in her favorite place. But a few days before I found out she was actually trying to set me up with this woman she knows. Once I found out I just refused to show up. That dinner was Thursday and yesterday she was furious that I hadn't shown. She said they had been waiting for me. I asked her who they was. She said she had brought someone along for me to meet. I told her I no longer trust her after this. My parents sent me a message last night that it was rude to be a no-show and I should understand they just worry I am putting my life on hold and denying myself happiness. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Your sister isn't treating you like an individual with your own desires. She doesn't respect you. It sounds like she just wants to fix you. And probably wants credit for being the one who fixed you. But you aren't broken. Tell your family that you will no longer meet up with your sister alone. And will leave any family gatherings at which there are non-family single women present. They need to respect your choice to remain single, or you will reduce contact with them. They can worry you're denying yourself happiness, but repeatedly pressuring you and trying to trick you into blind dates is absolutely not okay. It's also an idiot move towards the women your sister is trying to set you up with, presumably she's lying to them too, and not saying hey, my brother has made it abundantly clear he's not interested in dating anyone. How would you like to be part of a surprise blind date, which will at best be an awkward reminder of both his tragic loss and my perpetual inability to respect his boundaries? So, very much not the idiot. Your sister will never learn boundaries. She doesn't think she's wrong and she'll never accept it. It's sad, but it might be time to go no contact again. I'm a single mom and I lost my partner recently. I couldn't imagine trying to heal while dealing with that. It would be unbearable. You shouldn't have to put up with that from people that should be helping you. I hate when people try to force their version of happiness onto others. We all want different things and that's okay.